Europe at the dawn of the 19th century was a continent teetering on the edge of transformation. The Napoleonic Wars had reshaped borders, toppled kings, and left millions of lives hanging in the balance. Nations were locked in a deadly chess game, and behind every grand battle and public decree, a quieter, deadlier war unfolded, one of whispers, coded letters, and unseen eyes. Amid this turbulent landscape, spies were not mere shadows, they were architects of empires, wielding secrets with the precision of generals. Into this perilous world stepped a man whose life would become entwined with the fate of one of history's greatest conquerors, Napoleon Bonaparte. Born into modest circumstances, the man who would later betray the emperor's deepest plans displayed intelligence and cunning from an early age. He was ambitious, aware that in times of war, knowledge could be as powerful as armies. His recruitment into the clandestine world of espionage was as much a product of necessity as opportunity. European powers understood that Napoleon's brilliance on the battlefield was matched only by the loyalty of those around him, and to pierce that armor required more than brute force. It demanded deception, patience, and a willingness to live constantly on the edge of discovery. The double agent, driven by personal ambition and an acute sense of survival, stepped into this perilous arena with a mixture of fear and determination, traits that would define both his triumphs and his eventual downfall. The stakes could not have been higher. France under Napoleon was a nation of contradictions, innovation and tyranny, brilliance and hubris. While the emperor dazzled Europe with sweeping victories, his campaigns relied on meticulous planning and the faithful execution of his orders. One well-timed secret, one piece of intelligence in the wrong hands, could unravel entire armies. The double agent's journey is therefore not merely a tale of betrayal, it is a study of the fragility of trust in a world where information flowed as freely as blood on the battlefield. As he navigated the treacherous corridors of power, each move he made risked not only his own life but the fates of thousands of soldiers who marched and bled in distant fields. This section also introduces the network of spies, informants, and couriers that threaded through Europe like invisible veins, carrying news of troop movements, political plots, and strategic vulnerabilities. By focusing on these often overlooked actors, the story reveals that wars are not decided solely by generals and soldiers but by those who operate in the shadows. The double agent's early exploits demonstrate both ingenuity and moral ambiguity, presenting him as a deeply human character whose choices force the audience to grapple with questions of loyalty, ambition, and conscience. By the end of this section, viewers witness the first subtle signs of duplicity. Letters intercepted, minor betrayals unnoticed by Napoleon, and the agent's careful cultivation of trust lay the groundwork for the seismic consequences to come. The contrast between the unstoppable energy of Napoleon's rise and the hidden, methodical steps of a single spy creates immediate tension. Audiences are left with a sense of curiosity and unease, eager to see how one man's intelligence and audacity might one day shape the destiny of an empire. The stage is set, the players are in position, and the game of shadows has begun. The double agent's entry into Napoleon's inner circle marked the beginning of a dangerous dance, where every word spoken and every gesture could carry life or death consequences. Infiltrating the emperor's world required more than courage, it demanded careful observation, charm, and an uncanny ability to read men and situations. He learned to navigate the glittering court of Paris, where loyalty was demanded, ambition was hidden behind polite smiles, and spies often walked openly in plain sight. Historical records show that intelligence operations in this era were intricate, with coded letters, secret meetings in shadowed alleyways, and the constant risk of betrayal by those closest to you. For the agent, each step deeper into Napoleon's sphere meant that one miscalculation could result in immediate execution. As he gained trust, he began intercepting correspondence, memorizing troop movements, and quietly reporting details to foreign powers. The sophistication of espionage at the time is often underestimated. Messages were hidden in everyday objects, disguised with clever ciphers, and delivered under the guise of routine errands. These small, seemingly insignificant acts of information gathering could determine the outcomes of entire campaigns. The tension of this period is palpable. Viewers are drawn into the thrill of near discoveries, of moments where the agent's luck almost runs out, and of the ever-present fear that one misstep could unravel everything. Every secret obtained was a double-edged sword. It offered power and leverage, but carried immense personal risk. Beyond the mechanics of spying, this section explores the psychological burden of leading a double life. The agent faced moral dilemmas at every turn: betray friends who trusted him, manipulate those who respected him, and constantly question his own values. His successes were matched by inner turmoil, creating an emotional resonance that grounds the story in human experience. Napoleon, oblivious to the invisible hand guiding information away from him, continued his conquests with unwavering confidence, illustrating the contrast between ambition and vulnerability. This contrast heightens suspense, showing the audience that even the greatest leader can be blind to threats hiding in plain sight. The stakes escalated as the agent's intelligence reached crucial moments in Napoleon's campaigns. Early victories for the emperor were accompanied by small, mysterious setbacks: troop movements miscalculated, reinforcements delayed, plans falling apart in ways that seemed inexplicable at first. These anomalies, when traced back, reveal the agent's growing influence and foreshadow the dramatic reversals that would follow. By focusing on both the tactical details of military campaigns and the personal risks endured by the spy, the story maintains a balance between historical accuracy and emotional engagement. By the end of this section, viewers see a man walking a razor's edge, whose cleverness and audacity allow him to manipulate events without detection. The interplay of secrecy, danger, and the immense consequences of intelligence creates a tension-filled narrative that makes audiences eager to follow the next phase of his story. Napoleon's empire continues to expand, but the seeds of vulnerability have been planted, hinting at how one individual's duplicity could ultimately alter the fate of Europe itself. As the double agent's influence grew, attention shifts to Napoleon himself, revealing both his strategic brilliance and the vulnerabilities that the spy would exploit. Napoleon was a master of rapid maneuvers, meticulous planning, and inspiring loyalty, yet his extraordinary confidence sometimes blinded him to threats within his own circle. By examining key campaigns, troop deployments, and political decisions, the audience gains a clear understanding of the high stakes involved. The narrative highlights how a single misplaced piece of intelligence could unravel months of preparation, demonstrating the delicate balance between genius and overreach. The spy, now deeply embedded in the emperor's inner workings, began to identify patterns and weaknesses. Through intercepted letters, overheard conversations, and subtle observation, he mapped out Napoleon's decision-making processes, revealing how even a leader of unmatched talent was susceptible to deception. The historical depth of this section lies in detailing real campaigns and the ways information, or misinformation, could dictate success or disaster. Each revelation carries tension, showing how the agent's actions quietly shaped the outcome of battles long before cannons roared or swords clashed. Emotional stakes rise as viewers witness the human cost of these vulnerabilities. Napoleon's generals and soldiers, unaware of the leaks that imperiled them, followed orders with trust and courage, highlighting the tragic consequences of espionage. The contrast between Napoleon's unwavering confidence and the unseen manipulations of the spy adds layers of suspense, illustrating the fragile line between victory and defeat. Audiences are drawn into this moral and strategic complexity, experiencing both admiration for Napoleon's genius and anxiety over the looming betrayal. This section also emphasizes the spy's personal challenges. Operating so close to one of history's most formidable figures required constant vigilance, adaptability, and self-restraint. Each day brought the risk of exposure, and even a minor error could lead to execution or ruin. By humanizing the spy and showing his calculated choices, the story maintains tension while deepening the audience's emotional connection. It becomes clear that espionage is not only about gathering information but surviving the psychological pressures of deception, fear, and the constant awareness that lives and empires depend on every decision. As this section unfolds, the narrative threads of strategy and personal risk intertwine. Napoleon's campaigns continue, grand in scale and ambition, yet increasingly influenced by the unseen hand of betrayal. The audience gains insight into the fragile interplay between human ingenuity and vulnerability, understanding how the spy's duplicity is gradually reshaping the trajectory of one of Europe's most powerful empires. By the end of this section, tension peaks with the awareness that the emperor, despite his brilliance, is unknowingly walking into a web of secrets that could determine not just the outcome of battles, but the fate of nations. The consequences of the double agent's betrayals became undeniable during one of Napoleon's most critical campaigns, where meticulous planning collided with unseen manipulation. As the emperor mobilized his forces with characteristic precision, the spy's intelligence had already reached enemy hands, tipping the balance in ways that would prove catastrophic. Every maneuver, every anticipated reinforcement, and every strategic decision was shadowed by the invisible threat of betrayal. Historical records reveal how small leaks of information could change the outcome of battles, and in this case, the stakes could not have been higher. The lives of tens of thousands of soldiers and the stability of entire nations hung in the balance. The battlefield became a stage for both human bravery and the cruel hand of fate. Napoleon, confident in his knowledge and in the loyalty of those around him, was blindsided by unexpected setbacks. Troops were misdirected, supply lines faltered, and enemy forces anticipated his moves with uncanny accuracy. The tension in the narrative escalates as viewers witness the emperor's mounting frustration and the sense of inevitability created by the agent's machinations. Emotional highs and lows are interwoven, heroic charges and strategic genius contrasted with the fear, confusion, and despair of those caught in the crossfire of unseen intelligence. The spy's role, though invisible to most, is revealed in subtle yet decisive moments. His careful timing, clever manipulation of information, and ability to remain undetected underscore the power of espionage in shaping historical outcomes. These sequences illustrate the contrast between the grandeur of large-scale military operations and the quiet, methodical work that can determine their success or failure. Audiences are drawn into the suspense, aware that the outcome of this campaign hinges not on battlefield heroics alone but on the delicate threads of secrecy and deception woven by a single individual. Personal stakes heighten the drama as the emperor's advisors begin to notice anomalies, questioning their own judgment and loyalty. Soldiers, generals, and the emperor himself face the crushing weight of uncertainty, amplifying the emotional resonance of the story. By blending tactical detail with character-driven tension, the narrative keeps viewers engaged on both intellectual and emotional levels. The audience experiences the thrill of military strategy while simultaneously sensing the profound human cost of betrayal and miscalculation. By the end of this section, the campaign's outcome stands as a stark testament to the impact of intelligence and duplicity. Napoleon's reputation for brilliance is intact on the surface, but beneath the victories and calculated maneuvers lies a vulnerability exposed by the spy's relentless cunning. The contrast between apparent triumph and hidden catastrophe leaves viewers both awed and unsettled, emphasizing that in the shadowy world of espionage, the fate of empires can be rewritten by forces unseen. The stage is set for the final reckoning, where the consequences of these betrayals will ripple outward, reshaping the political and military landscape of Europe. The aftermath of the double agent's betrayals rippled across Europe, leaving a trail of political upheaval, shattered alliances, and military uncertainty. Napoleon, though outwardly composed, struggled to comprehend the subtle forces that had undermined his campaigns. His generals, too, were forced to confront the consequences of failures they could not fully explain, questioning their own judgment and the loyalty of those around them. The spy, having manipulated the flow of information with ruthless precision, now faced a world in which his influence could both protect and imperil him, as enemies and allies alike became aware that deception had been at play. The human toll of these revelations was immense. Soldiers who had fought valiantly found themselves marching into traps they could neither anticipate nor avoid. Entire regiments were left vulnerable due to misdirected orders and compromised strategies, demonstrating how the invisible hand of espionage could dictate life or death. Emotional stakes remain high, as audiences witness the desperation of commanders scrambling to salvage situations and the quiet terror of troops caught between loyalty to their leader and the unpredictable outcomes of unseen manipulations. This section captures the fragile nature of trust in wartime, emphasizing that even the mightiest empire could be destabilized by secrets in the wrong hands. At the same time, the spy's personal journey grows more precarious. His position, once shielded by anonymity and careful planning, becomes increasingly perilous as suspicions rise and scrutiny intensifies. The tension of living a double life reaches its peak, and every decision carries immediate consequences. The narrative highlights the psychological burden of espionage: fear, paranoia, and the constant calculation of risks that could mean survival or execution. By humanizing these experiences, the story maintains emotional engagement, showing that behind the grand sweep of historical events are individuals whose choices and vulnerabilities have far-reaching effects. Political ramifications extend beyond the battlefield. Nations that received the stolen intelligence now hold advantages that reshape diplomatic negotiations, forcing Napoleon to respond to threats on multiple fronts. Alliances are strained, and trust within the French hierarchy begins to fracture. The narrative illustrates how a single agent, through careful manipulation of information, can alter the broader course of European politics. This section bridges the tension between immediate military consequences and the long-term instability that follows, reinforcing the idea that espionage operates in both the visible and invisible spheres of power. By the conclusion of this section, the story has reached a tipping point. The double agent's cunning has not only endangered Napoleon's campaigns but also demonstrated the fragility of even the most formidable empires. The audience is left grappling with the paradox of brilliance and vulnerability, seeing how human ambition and ingenuity can be both a weapon and a weakness. The tension sets the stage for the final reflections on legacy and historical lessons, highlighting that in the shadowy world of intelligence, the consequences of betrayal echo far beyond the moment of discovery, leaving indelible marks on both men and nations. The story of the double agent concludes not with a battle won or lost, but with the enduring consequences of deception and the reshaping of history. Napoleon, despite his genius and resilience, was left to grapple with the fragility of his empire and the realization that even the most brilliant strategies could be undone from within. The spy's actions had proven that information, silent, unseen, and easily manipulated, could wield power equal to armies and artillery. By reflecting on these events, the audience gains insight into how espionage has long been a decisive factor in warfare, influencing outcomes far beyond the immediate battlefield. The legacy of the double agent extends beyond his own survival or demise. European intelligence practices evolved in response to the vulnerabilities exposed during Napoleon's campaigns, laying the groundwork for modern espionage and the systematic collection of military secrets. Nations became more vigilant, communication more coded, and the concept of counterintelligence more sophisticated. By highlighting these developments, the story emphasizes that one individual's choices can have repercussions that echo through history, shaping strategies, politics, and even national security for generations. At the same time, the personal dimension remains central. The spy's life illustrates the human cost of living in the shadows, the constant tension, the moral compromises, and the isolation that accompanies a life built on secrets. Viewers are reminded that behind the grand sweep of history are individuals whose courage, cunning, or duplicity can alter the course of events. The contrast between Napoleon's public triumphs and the hidden manipulations that undermined him reinforces the theme of vulnerability beneath grandeur, creating an emotional resonance that lingers even after the narrative concludes. The closing reflections also invite contemplation on the broader lessons of trust, ambition, and human fallibility. Empires rise and fall, battles are won and lost, but the consequences of betrayal and secrecy endure. The double agent story becomes a cautionary tale, demonstrating how power, no matter how great, is always subject to the unpredictable influence of individuals who operate in the shadows. It leaves the audience with a sense of awe at the delicate interplay between brilliance and vulnerability, ambition and morality. Ultimately, this tale closes with a powerful reminder: history is not written solely by the victors or the visible actors on the battlefield, but by those who understand and manipulate the hidden currents of information and influence. The story of one man's duplicity echoes far beyond his lifetime, a testament to the enduring power of secrecy in shaping the destiny of nations.